Okay,
Okay.
okay, perfect. Let's do it. Of course, the train just passed by.
Yeah, and I'm on my husband's laptop and it has the worst resolution.
Oh
Because
no. Okay, we're live. We're live. Good afternoon, good evening, buenas tardes, noches, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This is Michelle for Casa Elm, located in San Miguel de Allende. I have lived in San Miguel de Allende for almost 6 years, Mexico for 6, traveled in and out of Mexico for almost 20 years. I'm super duper excited tonight to have another conversation with Rakia. She's someone that I actually met years ago, right? I want to say it was maybe in 2020. We met online. We haven't gotten a chance to meet in person yet. Our very first conversation lasted a while. She's extremely knowledgeable. And then we did a recorded conversation with yourself and also the Bangora Chronicles,
Bangor Chronicles.
Roxana, and it was like a 3 hour conversation that I broke down into 3 parts. But this woman is so full of information and wealth of just everything Mexico, and I just really enjoyed talking to her. And I just recently discovered that she has relocated to Merida, which is very popular. So I wanted to catch up with her again. And moving forward, I'm also trying to reconnect with people and kind of get back into talking to expats that are already in Mexico and their journey through Mexico, the things that they are experiencing, because this community is growing rapidly, and especially San Miguel. So again, I'm Michelle in San Miguel de Allende. I have a guest house space called Casa Elm. Just like my channel, you can visit casaelm.com. On Casa Elm's website, you will see that we create a soft landing experience for those who are interested in relocating to Mexico the right way. I always say the right way. We coach people through the process. We help them figure out, is this their space? And kind of even one of the things we'll talk about tonight is understanding your like personality type and how you are and what you can handle in moving abroad, because it can be challenging sometimes. So that's what we're here for. We offer relocation tours, we offer travel experiences, or just for anyone who wants to come and visit and experience SMA. That's what Casa Elm is all about. And without further chit chat, make sure you all hit the like button, please. It really helps this whole mission of having a YouTube channel. I appreciate all my regulars. Be sure to subscribe if you've been here a few times and you enjoy my content. I appreciate all of you for supporting everything that I'm doing over here, and all the guests that come on and are excited to have conversations. Before I move forward, I want to also say tomorrow I will be on Krishan's channel on Black Global tomorrow at 3:30 my time. You'll have to go to her website to find the link because I don't have it right off the top of my head, but I am emailing that detail and information. So if you're on my subscriber list, you can find it. So without talking any further, I want to introduce Rakia Hernandez. She's lived in, I hope I got this right, Mexico for over 20 years. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and she's just an amazing individual to speak with. She has a couple language centers through Mexico, and she's recently started another business that she will explain to us what she's doing. Congratulations on getting your PhD.
Thank you.
Good for you. She's just dynamic. And so if you have questions, please jump in the chat and ask them. Diane, welcome. Dixie, welcome. Carol, Michelle, Jetta, thank you all for being here, and anyone else that's watching. And hit it, Rakia. Tell me a
All
little
right.
bit about yourself and the audience, where you're from, and a little bit of your journey to Mexico.
Okay, sure. First of all, thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure to see you. And like you said, my name is Rakia Hernandez, and I have been here a long time, long time. But it's my home away from home. I always say that I've been in Mexico Half of my life now. Yeah, I'm 40.
Mhm.
I'm about to be 41. So
Oh.
I've been here a while. Um, as you already mentioned, I have language centers from central Mexico to the south of Mexico, Veracruz to Yucatan. My husband and I have lived everywhere from Tijuana, Nayarit, Guadalajara, now Veracruz, and now Yucatan. So we do all types of destinational services, not only just language, right? And as you just mentioned, I just got my doctorates in psychology, occupational and developmental.
Mhm.
And this means that not only do I practice license here in Mexico, I'm also a life coach and destinational coach out of the United States as well. I'm originally from North Carolina. And yeah, I love Mexico. Absolutely love it here. Good, bad, or indifferent. It's home.
I love it. I love it. So, where was your first kind of landing spot in Mexico, and what, like, kind of talk us through a little bit of some of maybe what you can recall your challenges are, just because we're going to get into the whole moving abroad topic.
Well, I will first say that I moved here when Fred Flintstone was still in charge. So I moved to Tijuana first, and we drove from Portland, Oregon into Tijuana. And I moved to Tijuana when it was not the gastronomic capital of Latin America. I moved there when it was just a waiting spot to cross into the United States. So it was pretty fair. It was ugly. I thought that I had seen ugly beaches before, but Playa de Tijuana, Jesus Christ, it is something special. And I always tell people who get caught up in that whole expression of the wall, the wall. I'm like, yeah, the wall has been there a long time because it has gone out into the ocean to separate the ocean from Tijuana and from San Diego. So that was our first spot. Um, from Tijuana, we went to Magdalena, which is in Sonora. And then from Sonora, we went to Veracruz, Orizaba. And then from Orizaba, we went up to Nogales, Sonora, which is on the border of Arizona. And I absolutely love it there.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
where I started my educational journey with the University of Hermosillo. I love Sonora. A lot of people don't understand border living is Mexico light because you have the opportunity to go back and forth, back and
True.
forth.
That's true.
So if you are not quite sure what you want, what Mexico offers, and if you're wanting to adjust, I always say check out the border. Don't let people scare you with the crime because I mean crime is everywhere. Really, you get a way to understand how to use pesos when you live on the border. You also understand what the diet looks like when you're on the border. If you don't like it, guess what? You could go right across the border and go back
True.
home, you know. If you get overwhelmed because you don't speak the language, you can go have lunch in San Diego, you can go have lunch in Phoenix, and then you have that dose of home and then you come back and save your pesos. So I think
Oh,
border
interesting.
living is pretty cool. For me, I told my husband when I was ready to go back into central Mexico because it's difficult. When you first come over, you don't speak the language, you've never had to turn on a boiler, you've never had to talk to the carniceria, or if you've never had to experience your milk getting it off the shelf. You
Right.
know, these things kind of
And your
give you a culture
eggs.
shock. Eat your eggs, you know, and these things for me, I like to cook, so they were a culture shock. I was like, what is going on? Why is people why is the milk on the shelf? What's wrong with it? You know, and then when you have to adapt to the culture, you know, it's sad, but we know that the Latin culture is kind of bullying. They laugh at everything. So when you ask for explanations and they laugh at you, you got to really have a solid, you know, personality. You got to be sure about yourself so that you're not like, oh my God, they're laughing at me, at me. No, they're kind of laughing at their ignorance, but it comes off as your ignorance in the moment, you know? So when you're living on the border, you get a chance to jump in a car or catch a bus and go back to your normality. And if you're a big girl like myself, you get to go to Ross.
That's
So
right. Ooh, I miss TJ Maxx and not so
yeah,
much Ross. I like Ross Home Good stuff, but I miss the just that whole going to get candles and things that don't cost as much because they're expensive here. But it's interesting that you bring that up because I've never had anyone say border life and kind of getting to kind of ease into that Mexico living, border living. I've never had this conversation before, so I think that's quite interesting and another concept that maybe a lot of people haven't given a lot of thought to.
yes. What I'm noticing right now that I'm working more as a therapist is people are just jumping right into so much unsurety. Like, they don't even realize that Mexico's 32 states. So they can take a pick. You don't have to follow this crowd that's not going to pay your bills. You
True.
can really decipher what geography in this country works for you. And people who have attachment issues, or for me, I feel like those who are still attached to their VPNs, I'm like, well, why are you so far in when you could just be on the border? And if
And
anything goes
still be
off,
in
you
the
could just
US.
go, yeah, you could just run to
Well,
Starbucks right quick.
but I think the reason is we people will go where they see familiarity. So I don't know anyone that lives on the border. You're the first person in 6 years that I'm having this conversation with now. When I say that, I know people who do it. I know people who travel back and forth for work or whatever. I know people who take their cars and drive from San Miguel to wherever in the United States or to Texas to get the things they need, but not actual border living. So, what does border living look like? What places? Because what we hear is what happened last year, right? Oh, this person was driving over the border to this town that no one ever heard of, and this is what happened. So tell us the good side, like, or the things that we don't know, because that's the reason why it's not popular or maybe not so well known, and why people are following what they follow, because people are going to follow the things if they don't know. They're going to follow something that looks familiar to them, as we were saying earlier on YouTube or any
Absolutely.
other out.
Um, First of all, expat groups, there's one for Tijuana, there is one for Sonora. I think education is the key. I think first we have to identify what state, and then you can type in expats here and see what you get. There are a lot of people, for example, I didn't realize how the Caucasian community has really taken over Sinaloa. And I was like, wow, when I was there, like nobody spoke English. And now it's like it's a must. So I think the idea here is that we have to educate ourselves as a community of where we're really going, like countrywide.
True.
People kind of really focus on Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Merida, San Miguel de Allende, Mexico City, Nuevo León, Monterrey. And that's about it. And that's not nearly enough. And then when they come, they forget to travel the country. They forget to travel the country. And because they don't travel the country, they also don't have the exposure to what is really Mexico. For example, border life for me was a winner because when I moved, there was no such thing as Wise. So it was literally like Western Union or Global Remittance with Wells Fargo. So literally, I would work in San Diego and then come over, or I would work in Flagstaff and then come over. It was literally 2 hours, 3 hour drives to and from every day.
Okay.
But the rent was worth the distance because now it's a little more expensive. They do take dollars, inflation, because even though the border is not something in our community that's talked about, the other people are there. And then so they have gentrification going on and the cost of living is going up. But it's still cheaper. Like I know for a fact Nogales Sonora is cheaper than Merida by a landslide. And if like people who are enthusiastic about seafood, if you're not on the Pacific and you're not in the Rosarito, Ensenadas, um, San Carlos, you're not really getting good seafood. You're getting everything that is highly marketed to you, but you're not getting the truth. And something
Mhm.
that I just spoke about with my husband, I
Mhm.
was so excited. Um, here in Merida, it's so Mexico light that even the Yucatecans don't know good Mexican dishes. They
Mm.
know their local
Interesting.
dishes, but they don't
Mhm.
know like good Mexican food, like from Mexico City or from Veracruz. Veracruz has a very African palette,
Mhm.
onions, tomatoes, seasonings.
Mhm.
And so,
You put their foot in it, right?
yeah, because
Mm.
the West Africans came in
Mhm.
as slaves, and then
Mhm.
Cubans came in.
Mhm.
So Veracruz has really good food.
Mhm.
Now, you come to Merida, and everybody's like, "Oh, the food in Yucatan is great," and I was like, "Well, where is it located? Because I'm not getting it. I'm not. I'm not
That's how
getting
I feel in San Miguel. I really feel that way. There are lots of places that I think are exploring the whole, just fusion. Oh, there's no Thai food, so let's start a Thai restaurant. Or there's no Chinese food, let's open a Chinese. There's no Japanese or whatever. But it's not that great. Like if you've traveled and you've had place like food in the authentic country, or you've had it in places where it just was authentic and it was good, it just isn't hitting. And I'm realizing that just more and more. Like there are amazing places to eat out with amazing views, great drinks. And then for me, a lot of the menus, not everywhere, but I feel like it's a 50-50 a lot of the times. And it pisses me off because San Miguel is more expensive than a lot of other places. When I go to Mexico City, I can find amazing food there. Lots more choices that actually taste more authentic. So I hear that. Like I feel that taking a trip to other parts of Mexico definitely enlightens you. When I was on the Pacific coast, I had amazing seafood in Mazatlan. I was pretty
it.
impressed. I was just like, okay, I need to come over here and get my snapper because it was so good. And the seasonings were different. They really were a bit different, the way they prepared things.
Exactly. And I think that's something that people cut themselves short on when they listen to the fads of Mexico. Like, I'm gonna go into Merida. Like, I moved to Merida because I wanted to put my second school here, because for
Mm-hmm.
COVID, I got a really nice rush of Mexican students, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people understand that about my business. We have been flourishing off peso for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when we moved here, it was because the Mexican people were interested in English, French, and German. And being here, we developed the Spanish program to help out the expat community.
Mm-hmm.
So moving here, I was even taken back at the amount of African Americans I was running into, because in
Mm-hmm.
Veracruz, it was just me and rocks. So I was just like,
Yeah, I
what?
remember. You guys were like, don't tell anybody.
Yeah. And
We
and
don't
I'm gonna
want a bunch of immigrants. She
yeah,
doesn't like calling us expat. She's like, we don't want a bunch of immigrants coming and invading. So I was very surprised to see that you had moved to Merida, but yes, now you're giving me those explanations on
yeah,
the
we moved here
choices.
to open the second annex of the school. And when I realized how many expats, and I'm still really not a fan of the word expat, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment when I go into destination coaching. Um, I was just like, well, what are y'all doing here? What, what is happening? Like, what is happening in Merida that is so many of us? Like, what are y'all doing here? Like, tell me about it. Because when I sit and talk, I'm just like, ooh, they're like, oh no, we don't mix with the locals, and um, oh no, we're not going to the arenas. And I'm just like, what are y'all doing here? And what are y'all traveling? But Merida has Texas Roadhouse. Merida has Costco. Merida has everything that the United States has, a little bit of Canada, and a couple European spots. So I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. You guys are in Mexico light. You're not really in Mexico.
That's a good
So
way to put it. We need to start a drink that's called Mexico Light. What would that
yeah.
be?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. I get it. It helped me because the first year I was shocked. I was like, well, what is happening? Did I miss the memo? I was like, hey, I missed something. There
Mm-hmm.
was this rush of people who came to Mexico during COVID, and it went right over my head. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I landed here too, and I was just, wow. And then there was like, oh, okay. And it's been a good thing for me too, because it helped me to realize sugar in the States and sugar in Mexico is completely different. And I didn't really understand that until I went to Costco. And I was like, oh, this don't taste good at all. And so I was like, oh, okay. I get it. I get it now. And so speaking about border life again, those
Mm-hmm.
are the things that you get to experience. You get to
Mm-hmm.
wean yourself off of the United States. I call it detoxing. Like I tell my coaching clients,
Mm-hmm.
to be successful abroad, you have to detox yourself from the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either go cold turkey or you can do little by little. I
Mm-hmm.
chose to detox little by little because
Okay.
I needed to figure out how healthcare, I'm epileptic, so I need to figure out how healthcare works in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I needed to figure out what finances was going to look like for me in Mexico because when I moved here, I was nowhere near retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to, and work online wasn't a thing. So I needed to be able to get back and forth to the hospital to do my job.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I realized I didn't want to do the border run anymore, I needed to realize what education looked like so that I can switch careers. And once I got over that, I wanted to make sure that if something was to happen to my husband, I would still be able to sustain myself in Mexico.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
I decided to detox little by little. And I don't know if you saw this viral video with this guy screaming, I want American police. I want American police in Cabo. And
Mm-mm.
I was like, yeah, you too far in. You should have stayed close to the border and then you could have got yourself American police.
That's funny. Oh my God. I haven't seen that. I'm sure now it will pop up somewhere on my computer.
Yeah, you gotta
Because,
see him.
they're listening to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm glad that you're talking about that because, again, I really have never heard anyone kind of discussing, as I said, the driving back and forth or whatever. It's always the imagery that I think I've probably created is that, living along the border is not always a safe choice in general. But again, as we know with Mexico and the things with Mexico, you have to kind of go and experience it. It's just, I don't personally know anyone that's done what you're saying, but I don't think it's a bad idea if you need some of the conveniences that the United States offers, even from down to, like you said, you don't need a VPN, right? Because maybe you're close enough to come up as being in the United States or whatever the reasons are. I think, again, why is Merida popular? Why is San Miguel popular? Because someone came here and talked about it and started sharing. That's the reason. Like, I honestly think a build it, they'll come happens, right? They may not come immediately, but with time, talking about it, sharing those spaces, then you start educating people on the interior places in Mexico. And this is kind of, I think, the purpose of what all of us are doing. I'm looking in the chat, there are quite a few individuals, and I'm going to get to you all and say hello in a moment, that are doing this. They're like, oh, I had no idea about wherever it is they are. They love San Miguel. I started shining a light on San Miguel because I love living in San Miguel. I don't think it's because of all of the conveniences. I love San Miguel because of the community. I think it's a great place to integrate with locals alike, people that have been here for a long time. It's art, there's a lot of art, music, blah, blah, blah. And yes, I do think going to other places in Mexico can be a little bit harder for people to integrate. Can everyone just kind of drop and come and drop and roll into this newer situation? I think it can be challenging. We'll talk about that a little bit. But I also do think, yes, people are coming with the expectations of having those conveniences. Personally, I had zero idea that there was a Costco's and all these things close by. I remember my first time going to the mall in Querétaro, 45 minutes or so away. I was shocked. I was like walked in and I was just like, this is probably one, I've been to a lot of really beautiful malls, but this was one of the nicer malls that I had seen. And of course, it's that thing where I traveled in and out of Mexico, but I had been to mostly rural type places in Mexico, in Oaxaca, along the beach. You
Mm.
know, Puerto Escondido, Zipolite, Mazunte, all of those places are not as developed. And I just kind of, you know, and I even back in the day, I'd been to Oaxaca City, which was just kind of up and coming. It was sort of what San Miguel probably was in the 70s or 80s. And now it's, you know, it's further along. So in educating ourselves about how many states there are, how many cities are options, you know, and I'm still discovering things and I'm still shocked. I'm just kind of like, who knew, right? Who knew about these amazing, beautiful cities,
And
you know,
yes, and realizing that Mexican culture is broad. It
extremely broad.
it is broad, and I know because yes, Rox and I are still good friends. She talks to me all. We talk about this all the time. My experience is different because my husband is from this country. So when I tell you that we would just jump in the car and drive around free spirited, I know that it's a luxury that is not afforded to a lot of people because they don't speak the language. They still operate with fear because it's a new country, new thing. I understand that. And so I'm very fortunate that I've had that experience where my husband has been very flexible to take me like I would flip a coin and be like, I want to learn about this today. And he's like, all right, let's go. When I came to San Miguel, we did the tour of Independence, and I learned so much. Guanajuato, San Luis
Potosí.
Potosí, Querétaro, San Miguel Allende. But that's normally how I am, and that's why I tell people all the time. Listen, I don't know about this soft life y'all looking for because I'm still on the search too. But but I will say that life can be soft here if you educate yourself and understand how broad the Mexican culture is. And because some people say, "Oh, Mexicans are very open," and I'm like, "Yeah, it depends on where you're at.
True,
Depends on where you're at. The
true.
community can be very open. Uh, right now in the news on our end, we have like Central Mexico is being very much is kind of getting heated as far as foreigners. And I'm just like, do people in the middle of Mexico understand that the local community is kind of upset, and and we're here in Yucatan, it's just like peace, love, and happiness. So now we do have some spots in Yucatan where people are like, we don't bring that over here. So I'm just like, it's super important that when you come to Mexico, you think about coming to Mexico, you do the homework, and you realize you're not really looking for said community that is far away from home, but you're looking for what you can adapt to, what can become comfortable for you, because you're still away from home. There's
Right.
things that you're going to be missing, and and how good are you at going cold turkey is how far you need to be. And now we have these international airports that are doing like nonstop flights in and out of places like Atlanta, Texas, New York, stuff like this,
California.
California. So it's easy, $180 and you're back, moving quickly again. So these things are new and popping up. So I think people just really need to have that into place. How good are you at being alone? How good are you? Because uh, now that I'm doing this destination coaching and psychology sessions with people, um, a lot of people are really lonely, Michelle. They are lonely. They are moving to San Miguel. They are moving to Merida, Playa de Carmen. And these places have great communities. You know what I'm saying? You got the wine and the paint. You got the poetry nights. You got the spade nights. You got beach and
Karaoke.
yoga. Yeah, you got karaoke. But at the end of the day, you still got to go back to this apartment or this house. And let's not talk about the number one era. They come and they get these really big houses here, these really big castle houses that they've never had to maintain this type of house before. And now they've got this major house that is big and empty. And so they can't sit with themselves in this big empty house. And now they're, finding themselves sad because either you're going to pay to play all these community games every day that can be very expensive. I don't know about San Miguel, but here in Merida, everything is rooftop. I mean, it's that rooftop society.
Thank you.
And okay, so you got to pay to play that rooftop game. And the
Yeah.
moment that your pesos and your dollars don't put you on that rooftop, then you got to find another group of friends. And I'm just like, the problem here is that you guys are not able to stay, um, you're not able to stay with yourself. It's kind of like you are who you are wherever you are. And if you didn't do the work with who you are before moving, that excitement, that adrenaline about being in this country wears out quick. It wears out quick, and it wears, and that those false friends go away faster when the money disappears. And so now you're sitting in this big empty home. And then it's time for you to move because they always downsize before they decide to go back to the States, and they start selling stuff just
That's
ridiculously over.
interesting because I haven't experienced that in the extremes. And I'm saying about the circle and the community, I kind of feel like that is a factor. But I do think that a lot of the community that has moved here in these past, I want to say 2 to 3 years, a lot of them have stayed. And even for those that have left, it was more so because they really didn't do their homework about moving abroad the right way. The circle that I'm in, not everyone has like these, massive size homes. A lot of people have downsized because maybe they're coming from bigger homes in the US and now they're in a different chapter, or they're single, or if they came with their husbands. I'm not saying everyone. There are some people who have bigger, larger homes and things like that. It is a good point that needs to be made, but I do think, yes, you are who you are when you left the United States and you came here. So if there are things you need to work on from, like moving into a fancy home doesn't necessarily change how you adapt in situations that are unfamiliar to you. It's always nice when you have the project. That's what I call it. It's the project. It's the moving. Like I got there, I did this and I did that and I fixed this and I did and the house is beautiful and now it feels like home and da da da. And then it's sort of like, okay, what do I do? If you're not at the retirement phase or level, or even if you are, but maybe there's something else you want to pursue or you want to do, sometimes, yes, you have to sit with yourself and you may feel lonely. But I really honestly feel that our community and the women that are coming, there's a lot of folks that are stepping into another role that maybe they've always wanted to explore, or they're bringing their skill sets with them, but they're expanding into other things in other areas. And there's a lot of support here in these circles. So
What
I'm just
age
saying.
group? No. What age group? Because um, the people who moved from Merida to San Miguel de Allende that I've noticed, I've only been here 2 years in Merida. I've noticed that the ones that are going upwards, inwards, they're older, more mature. Remember that we are getting, Merida gets the people who are in between. I want to be partying in Playa de Carmen.
Oh no.
I want that life, to Tulum life. And
Okay,
then they
gotcha.
realize, you know what I'm saying? I think it's that
It's
Merida is
okay.
that landing zone, or I got these children, so I want a nanny. I got these children, so I want to live in nanny so that I can get
Okay.
on these rooftops.
Gotcha. Okay, so the
Or
demographic is a little bit different. I think I feel that we are seeing a younger demographic in San Miguel, younger than the locals and retirees, right? Because that's what it's been for decades. Retirees
Mhm.
started coming here when the 50s and 60s, and it's how that whole artist community developed. They're like, hey, you're a musician, come on down. And that's what this city has grown and really flourished in. And now we're seeing a lot of families. I see a lot of people that, even today, I met someone who said, I'm kind of trying to figure out if I even want to be in Mexico. This is the first place I've landed that I like. She said she was in Merida, she was in Playa, and she was just kind of like, no, not for me. I do think it's more family oriented. It's not transient. It's just it's a space where no matter your interest, you can find some circle of folks. It's not superficial, in my opinion. It is the reason I said heck no to Playa, Cancun, because I was coming from South Florida. I already saw the transient lifestyle, right? The party, the going out, and so I do think our demographic is it's getting younger, but we don't have that same vibe that you would find at the beach. Honestly, there are nightclubs and stuff, but when you go to the nightclubs here, at least I tried in the very beginning. I think I went to two. I mean, these kids were like, they could have been my kids. They were like 16, 17, 8. I was like, oh, heck no. Didn't think about it. Thought 21 and up or 25 and up. No, they let children in. And, the places were very nice, but it wasn't my speed. And there are a lot of rooftop things here, but I feel like there's a much more mature setting, and the people that live here for the most part. They're not just like popping up for a yacht cruise and a weekend of drinking all you can and then going. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely a little different.
And see, Merida offers both. That's the thing. You either gonna settle, and don't forget that we have this extreme heat. So today it was like 56. So when I tell you that 56
56.
Celsius,
Oh, hell no.
yeah, yeah. So you either have
I'm a
to,
fan myself.
yeah.
I just got a hot flash.
Listen, I was gonna do this. I was gonna talk to you in another part of my house, but the air wasn't getting there, and I was like, the way my flashes are set up, I need to sit on the air conditioner. So I was like, nope, I really know we're gonna make space somewhere else.
You
So
said 56. I thought you were saying Fahrenheit. I was gonna say
no,
that's my fail. I was like, oh, okay.
no, it's Celsius. We hot, and it's just March, and it's hot. So the way I tell people when they're like, oh, I want to move to Merida, I was like, okay, all right. They're in between that. I want to party like a rock star. I want to have a family, but it's either. And then they get here and they're like, "Oh, the partying wasn't what I thought it would be." I was like, "Yeah, because we do turn it off at a certain hour. It's not like Tulum, or it is family oriented, but it's very nuclear. It's very you got to find your group of people." Yes. And a lot of people don't understand it. If you are an introvert in the United States, you're going to be an introvert in Merida too.
Exactly.
If you don't get out and find your group of people for all the right reasons, you'll just be by yourself. And then this is something that I've noticed. They don't even think to go elsewhere in the country.
Yeah, they don't give it a try. But again, back to what I said. And before we continue, I'm gonna don't let me forget that point. I want to say hello to people in the chat. Hi everyone. Thanks for being here, Iris. Hi Tracy Collins. She's also new to SMA.
Okay.
Hola Iona. Hola Aima. Dr. Aima. 6 degrees of influence. Nichelle. Hey. Cheryl, Deborah, Karen, Tracy, Colette, and Cheryl again. Let me see. Everyone's pretty much saying hello, but in agreement with, well, SMA is for grown folks. I really do think it is. But I want to make a point, right? And let's see. Dahlia, hi, Dahlia. That's one of my clients. Karen as well. Karen, lots of people who've passed through Casa Alma. I appreciate you all being here. Not before 10, welcome. Feliz Goddess, welcome. So I really think that, the reason people go to Merida and the places even San Miguel is because it's talked about, right? I've had so many people that have come to San Miguel that said, I never heard of San Miguel until I saw your YouTube or I read something or someone told me about it. It's just one of those things. Like for me, I never heard of Querétaro, just right there. I had never
Yeah.
heard of. I was literally flying into Mexico City when I first started coming here and taking the
Uh,
shuttle for 3 or 4 hours to get to San Miguel because I didn't know. And of course, I could have Googled it,
Querétaro.
but I just went to Mexico City. I was like, oh, there's an inexpensive ticket, nonstop JetBlue from Fort Lauderdale directly to Mexico City. And then when someone said, oh, there's this, shuttle company, call them, they'll pick you up. I just left it at that. I did no more research, right? Now that I live here and I know about other parts of Mexico, but I flew directly to like Huatulco or Oaxaca or wherever, Puerto Escondido. And I was just like, okay, I had no idea. I remember my first time to Mexico City itself. We drove from the beach, Oaxaca, 14 hours. And I was just like, God, damn it, this country is huge. It's like
Huge.
we're
Yes.
still in the car, right? And when we got to Mexico City, it just was one of those eye-opening moments where I thought, this is city, 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 right? I don't know why I thought it was anything other than that, right? And I loved it. I was just like, it's great. There were some cool places. I love the outdoor markets and blah, 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 blah. And this was decades ago. The point is that if you don't know, you don't know. Since I've lived here, I've had friends tell me about other places, or I've gone with them to other places in Mexico, that has also curbed my viewpoint into I don't mind getting in my car and driving, just me and my kiddo. Where I go, okay, I'm still, doing my research, but I'm not like, whoo, I got to stay right here in this bubble. I'm not that person. I mean, I still take precautions and stuff, but I've driven all over the damn place pretty
But
much.
that's the idea. I mean, I think with my destination coaching, I tell people all the time the idea for you to reach out to get help before moving abroad is so that you get to see the country with different points of view.
True.
Um, People just, I think, and I'm assuming, I think that uh, people think that Mexico is a very one note country
True.
because unfortunately, in the United States, Mexico is talked about in such a derogatory way. It has created this American elitism that, oh, I'll get there. And I had a client, oh my God, I had a client in December who was like, oh yeah, I'll just get to Merida and I'll pay them $20 to take me from the airport to the hotel. I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work. I was like, that's not gonna work at all. I was like, because right now we have a problem where Uber can't come close to the airport and taxis are way more than $20. So, but it's the American mentality because unfortunately, what we know about Mexico or what has been spoken about Mexico is so derogatory that people don't realize it's not the Wild Wild West. It's
True.
very developed. Even though it's something I've been talking about on and on and on. Mexico is very Romanesque. It does not wish to be like the United States, but it does have a very Roman imperial way of doing business. That's why you always have to have three copies of everything. You got to do everything three, six, and nine. It's very Roman, and it doesn't wish to operate like the United States. I don't know if you saw last week on 60 Minutes, our president AMLO had a very nice conversation, and he let it know we are
Right.
a free country. We do what we want to do, and we don't want to be like the United States.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, what I tell my clients, when you are detoxing from everything that you don't want to deal with in the United States, you have to leave space so that you can learn a new way,
True.
a new way. And with learning this new way, if you didn't travel in the United States, because I have also had clients who don't travel in the United States, then you should definitely make it a habit of yours now to travel. Because just
Mhm.
moving abroad doesn't mean that you won't be stuck, stand
True.
stillish, right?
Hmm.
And if you traveled among the United States and you realize there was areas that you didn't want to go into, then you have the exact same common sense and mother wits when you're traveling anywhere else in the world, right? And
True.
I think that's something that people who wish to move here or move here, they kind of forget. Like for me, yeah, I would just say Yucatan has turned everything into a business, Michelle. Everything.
Mm.
You want an RFC? Just 10,000 pesos. It's a business. You want you
That's
want to
for
drive?
free. You could do that for
Exactly. But
free.
everything here is a business. They have capitalized everything to the point where you want to find a house, oh, you gotta pay me 20,000 pesos and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, hey, where's your mother wits? Where's your common sense? Why
Hmm.
are you moving in this country in such a manner that you would never move in within your own country? Is it just because you're moved abroad? Or is it because you cut off common sense when they gave you the passport stamp? What happened? Because when I tell you that people will rely on the fact that they don't speak the language as the number
Hmm.
one reason for them to do these outlandish things when it comes to doing business here,
Hmm.
or just settling in or traveling here, I'm just like, well, what happens? You don't speak Chinese, but you go to China. You don't speak Thai, and you go to Thai. I just don't understand. So for me, I get really caught up in what's the mindset when you decide that you want to move to Mexico? Besides it being a lot of people's first step out of the United States,
Hmm.
it's a lot of people's first step out. And because getting help in the United States is such a foreign concept, mental health help, like understanding your mental health is so important. A lot of people don't really focus on that, so they feel like, oh, if I move, my mental health will get better. It doesn't people. It doesn't get better when you move.
No, it doesn't.
You have to address it and deal with it. But my point here is that they moved to Mexico and they kind of you have to take your time to get in where you fit in the place that you decided to call home.
Hmm.
But then don't get stuck there because this country is wow. It's wow, and there's so much to see and do. And if you get, it's very easy to get caught in the same rhythm, in the
But
same rhythm.
you know what I've discovered with all types of like kind of personality approaches and stuff, and I think because I think we're both in the business of helping people get here, right? Whatever their reasons and however they do it. Yes, then someone's creating a business out of something because maybe for them they see a need, right? They're just like, whatever. And I get where it's like, okay, take some time to help yourself, educate yourself. But sometimes people want ease. And it's not necessarily, oh, the ease life or easy life or whatever. It's just kind of, you know what? Making the mistakes and errors sometimes can cost you a lot more potentially, right? I'm not saying everything needs a person to do for you, right? Yes, educate yourself. Like if you get an RFC, do it yourself if you want to because it is free. Sometimes going online, maybe those steps can be overwhelming because what we get as foreigners, right? Because not all of us maybe have the history with Mexico or someone who speaks the language who, you've had like kind of like a lot of time to understand how things kind of operate in a different manner way than it does in the United States. But coming from the US to a complete foreign space, yes, learning the language, anyone can say that, but most people aren't necessarily going to learn the language in, oh, I want to get a home, potentially move in 6 months, and I'm going to be so fluent that I can do all of these things. So therefore, someone will say, okay, there's this person who offers these services, so you don't get in trouble because, in the reality of it, I think sometimes when things happen to foreigners, we get a harsher punishment, right? Because we don't know. We don't know. We're just kind of like, oh crap, I don't want to get in trouble in Mexico. And the information is never clear because I know even for myself, I have a business and it's pulling teeth. You have a business too. It's pulling teeth, trying to get straight answers. And yeah, I could waltz in and be like, okay, da da da, da, this is what I'm told by this person. And I can ask the same question to another attorney, get a complete different answer, right? Ask someone else and get a complete different answer. So it lends itself to confusion, it lends itself to uncertainty, and then it also then lends itself to, I don't really speak fluent Spanish. So I think maybe I should hire or help someone. And it's unfortunate sometimes because people end up sometimes getting, taken advantage of because of those reasons. So I don't know that there's an answer or a solution or a fix that's
I do.
wholehearted. You do?
I do.
Okay, tell us.
I do. I think that this goes back to education. A lot of times people don't do the homework on the person they hired
True.
because uh, when I say do the homework on the person you hired, for example, for me, working with Americans these last 2 years has been a learning experience because, as you know, here in Mexico, we're not really big on web pages. Everybody does everything WhatsApp.
FaceTime, I
Facebook,
mean, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Gmail. So
exactly.
don't think you're going to be a so-and-so at yourcompanyname.com. I have people, someone was like, oh, but her email says at hotmail.com. I'm like, that's because that's the one she uses.
Yes,
She
and
said
that's
it
it.
is.
And I think that's something that foreigners have to understand. You're in a new country. Business is done very different in this country. And instead of you being skeptical about the email address, let's just get online and check the cellular and
True.
see if this person is a legal doctor, if this person is legal to do their job. And the way that we check, because if you're not willing to learn how business is done in the country, then of course you're putting yourself at risk to be abused. For example, I had this question the other day: how can I check to see if my real estate agent is legit? Guess what? You just have to wake up in the morning, decide you want to sell a home, and you're now a real estate agent. But we do have Facebook where you can put this person's name in and see if they have any complaints. You can
Oh.
also get online and go to the government page and see if they have any lawsuits pending. So I think that's the thing for me when people are like, I'm going to hire this, that, and the third. What background check did you do before
True.
you go in and hire and pay all this money? Because I have literally watched people here in Merida pay thousands, Michelle. When I say thousands, I'm just like, well, wait a minute. Why? And what did you do
So
to
what type of
secure it?
service?
Yeah, I'm just
Like
what
what?
huh. And we
Yes.
know lawyers is crooked. We know it don't even matter what country they come from. They're all
True.
crooked. So so I'm just like, okay, I'm not saying we don't need a lawyer. I'm just saying, did you do the homework on the lawyer? To the best of
Yeah,
your ability. To the
that's
best of your
true.
ability. Because you can't just go, and I say this to my Mexican clients too. I was like, y'all run and do business with who the girlfriend said they did business with.
That's true.
And
But
then
word
you
of
want
mouth.
this, it's like the word of mouth. I said, and then you expect to get the same exact treatment. But guess what? Your girlfriend's problem wasn't as big as yours because she had help to do something that you didn't. So now you're being charged 2 or 3 times different because you skipped first 2 steps that the girlfriend had already covered. And it's just like, that's what I was telling you about this YouTube influence thing. I love it, but I'm just like, people aren't telling you that they got their immigration stuff handled before they moved, or
Like
they're not,
what? What do you mean by that?
like, people don't tell you when you moved here. When I'll start with me. When I moved to Mexico, I didn't have a passport. Okay, I just
Oh,
walked on in.
okay.
Okay, I didn't have a passport. I didn't have my birth certificate or anything. I just walked on in and set up shop.
Okay.
My son is 9, right? We applied for passports. I want to say 2 years before my kid was born,
Oh,
and I was like,
interesting.
oh, because on the border you could go in and out without a passport.
Then can you
Then,
do that?
then
Okay, you
now,
can't do
no,
that now. Right.
you can't
Okay.
do it now. So, so for me to give advice about my experience, I was like, we got to curb some things. The law has changed. So this is another thing people don't realize. Immigration changes every president. Every president changes. COVID did this number thing where you got to have 2,000 in the bank show so that you can come over here. This isn't a country that you can just walk in and out of. The United States
Anymore.
passport anymore, exactly. The United States passport is no longer number 6; it's 39. So you need a visa. You need a visa to go places now. Meaning that if you want to come here, you cannot just get a tourist visa and go and get you an apartment.
True, but you used to be able to do those things. And this is why I say, you know, there's so much misinformation because, in my opinion, as much as I love Mexico, it's a ball that's constantly moving. There, the bars
The goalpost
changing,
is
the
always
goal,
changing.
yeah, it's always somewhere else. It's like, oh well, we're stopping people and we're taking them off the bus and we're deporting them, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh no, you can only come you can only come for 30 days or 7 days and blah blah blah. So it's like everyone has all these experiences, and it's sort of like, that constant whisper, and every time someone speaks it changes. And this is what Mexico is all about. I always say this: don't get mad if anyone's Mexican and watching this, because I do really love living here. But the only thing consistent about Mexico is that it's inconsistent. Period. End of story. So, yes, you do have to kind of keep up with where you are in the process, because when I moved here, I also was able to secure a 12-month lease on my tourist visa. I was able to open a bank account with just my passport. I was able to get my driver's license by just showing my Florida license and my passport and my tourist visa. Okay, those things have changed in these last 5 to 6 years, and that's good. I think it's a good change, but this is not, something I did wrong. This is what they were allowing. They were allowing people for decades to live in Mexico, come and go, do a border run, leave for 2 days. Your visa is about to expire as a tourist, and you can come right on back into the country. Now maybe they're making it a little bit more complicated. Now they have the regularization program that's based on a whole bunch of different things. So I really feel that it's what Mexico has kind of created, this fog, right? We were talking about the YouTube fog. I really think Mexico has created its own fog of, we don't really know, but people are disseminating what their experiences are based on what happened when they came into the country. I came in 2018. Those things I just listed are very different now. I can't do any of those things, right? I'm a
Yes,
permanente now, but I can't do those things the way I did them 5 or 6 years ago.
exactly. And I tell my clients all the time, I don't touch immigration. I will give you to an immigration attorney. Why?
Same.
Because I don't touch immigration and I don't touch taxes. Because these laws change quicker than you change your clothes, because it depends on the political party in office. And because sometimes the Congress will change before no, not sometimes, all the time, Congress changes before the president. We never know what the new rule is. And we live in a country that works off palancas and nepotism. So you have to know somebody to really get the concrete answer, because the law could be this, but if you got enough money to change the game, we can change the game. And talk about your quote. I always said Mexico is a hurry up and wait country. It is
It is.
definitely
It
hurry up and wait.
is.
Everything
Hurry up
is,
and wait.
give me your paperwork right now, and now you sit down and wait. So,
Exactly.
but I say this to say, when you're looking for people to help you to move abroad, you want people who have the evidence of the work, evidence of their connection, that can make you successful. Word of mouth is great, but circumstances are different. And if you don't have the income as your friend, then your circumstances are different.
Exactly.
And you are going to have other hurdles to pop up. Everybody's story is very personal in this country,
True.
very personal. And I think that if we learn to to, I hate to keep saying the word educate, but just kind of broaden our horizons and educate ourselves about where we're going and how things are done, and just start to ask the proper questions. Like, one thing for me about about Merida, people I know have been taking advice for people who've been here 2 weeks, 3 months. I'm like, really? That's that. I'm not knocking anybody's hustle, but do they even know where the labor board is located? What kind of advice can they give you? I don't know in San Miguel, but here in Merida, you have to literally have a system set up for insurance and Infonavit for your domestic workers. And when you talk about this with people who don't have business in the country because they've got a 6-month visa, they tell you, no, you don't. And then you talk to people like myself who have time, like, yes, you do. It becomes conflictive. And then it's like, okay, well, do your own research. And that's what
Right.
I tell my clients. I'm nobody. I don't got no books written. Uh, I can just tell you about what I've been through. I can tell you what I know academically. Do your own research. Put in the
True.
work. If you have a question, ask it and
Right.
expect a solid answer. And try your best not to throw money at all the problems that occur, because it could just be a simple conversation that needs to be had instead of more money. Because what I have found, even with working with the locals, especially in this part of the country, because they are used to having money thrown at them, versus in Veracruz, not so much. It's more of community, like, oh no, keep your money. This was an easy fix. Let me just do it for you. Here in Merida, if you're not throwing money, you will sit and chase your tail for days. And
Interesting. Well,
I'm
that's because it's being gentrified by, you
it's
know,
been,
it's
Merida
been,
has been popular since the 60s.
but it's become more popular in the last 5 to 7 years because of people that are going on YouTube and talking about their experience in it and how inexpensive it used to be. I don't know if it's still inexpensive.
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm.
It was definitely inexpensive compared to San Miguel when I first came to San Miguel. I remember looking at places and I was like, oh, you can get all of that for that. But I don't know what it's like. I've never visited Merida, so, but I do know that it was kind of a very popular destination. But I think, again, it's because, as you said, people don't necessarily do their research. They're just like, oh, I heard about this. And then, they fall in love. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then they visit. Maybe it's not what they thought when they got there. Things started going up because, yes, the same thing is happening with what happened in San Miguel decades ago. When I came in '05, there was real estate for sale in Central for like 30, 40, 50,000. You could buy a property, land or whatever. You could buy a dilapidated house and fix it. And now it's like $500,000 and up, US
Oof.
dollars, not pesos.
Well, let me tell you
So
something.
I'm just
Here,
saying.
yeah, Merida is on the European Board of Tourism, and between the US dollar and Canadians, no, Marta, sorry, my dog is being all but
It's
bad.
okay.
Um, um, with that, 1 bedroom near the golf course, we talking 30,000 pesos. Yeah. Not only that, because we are farther away from the light company, we pay the most in electricity. It is nothing, and we use the air 24/7. It is
It's hot.
nothing for you to get a light
Hella
bill
hot.
that's 4,000 to 10,000 pesos.
I believe it.
And so these are the things, and this is the things I tell my clients. When you're watching these cute videos, is anybody talking about the fact that here we pay water monthly? Uh, is
Well,
anybody
it depends too, because I've paid bi-monthly, but I've also paid monthly. It depends, like you said, on where you are, where you live. When I was in my last development, I had to pay every month. It wasn't an
every month?
arm and a leg, but yeah.
But it's a bill, because in
Yep.
Veracruz we pay annually.
Oh, see, I never heard that before.
In
That would
Veracruz,
be
you pay
great.
annually, and you pay trash annually.
I'm moving to Veracruz. Tell me where
Eh,
to go. I'm
Well,
just
it's on fire. It's on fire right now, Michelle. So I don't know. It's
Ooh.
it's it's Veracruz is burning at the moment. But what I'm saying is, hold on, my dog is tripping. Move, Miley. Like he is definitely into something. So
I
what
know I
what
put
I'm
mine
saying,
outside.
oh yeah, it's too hot. I have
You like,
a
where's my
Frenchie. He was,
AC?
yeah. If I put this Frenchie outside, he'd die. So
Oh, baby.
um um what I'm saying to you though, and things that need to be spoken about with our destination clients, what the light bill looks like, when we do budgeting, right? Because that's another thing I think that people don't understand when they move abroad. The idea that the rent is cheaper than the United States is not enough.
True.
It's not enough because the rent is cheaper, but the lifestyle that you want to live when you get here, you want a maid, you want a nanny, you need a gardener. All the houses here just about have a swimming pool, so now you got a whole a pool care thing set up that you got to deal with, and these are every 2 3 day expenses. These are not once a month, every 15-day pay period. These are something that you got to plan for. And so when I talk to my clients, I'm just like, so we need a budget, and you can't tell me that the budget is, oh, that's cheap, because it's cheaper here than it is in Atlanta, because Merida is the new Atlanta. Everybody's from Atlanta here. So um um it's this weird thing that I think people don't really understand. I'm like, you guys are not asking for me personally, like, you guys are not asking the right questions. You're asking about community, like, what's for fun?
Yeah.
What are you gonna
But
do for
what would you consider the right questions? Because I think a lot of people are cutting their expenses by moving to Mexico, even if it's a little more than they anticipated or expected. I do think that in general, it's still less than maybe coming from Atlanta or definitely California or New York City or places like, where the cost of living is much higher. So, what kind of questions would you say are really important to ask? Yeah, for someone
Okay,
who's interested.
that's a good point. Depending on if you want to be a homeowner or a renter, I will tell you, my clients who want to buy homes, I ask them this simple question: in your lifetime, did you buy a house and a car in the exact same year?
True.
Yes.
Good point.
And they always tell me, no, absolutely not. And I said, are you going to drive to Mexico? No. So this means you will be buying a home and a car in the same year. So this is going to exacerbate your budget. Yes. Um, do you understand property taxes? Because as you know, we don't pay property taxes once a year, but if you have a business, we pay bi-monthly. You see what I'm saying? So when I say the proper questions, it depends on your lifestyle. If you're coming to buy, you need to understand where you're moving to, what those property taxes are going to look like at the moment. I would always advise that you see what the taxes were 5 years ago versus today when you're moving, so that you can see what inflation looks like. Also, you need to understand the geography of that land, that property. Is there water under there? A lot of people don't realize that Merida is only 12 feet above water, and then they're complaining about the humidity. I'm like, well, you're on top of a cenote. So, you know,
Interesting.
you see what I'm saying? So wherever you are, you need to ask questions. How does the water works here? We also don't have a good drain system. So I'm like, when you're driving in your car, did you notice that there were no drains? So there's things that I think people are just not aware of because they're on this adrenaline rush of moving. And that's what we have to make them aware of as their coaches. Like, okay, listen, you want to move over to this area that seems to be popular online, but there's a pig farm over there that is causing cancer. Let's talk about the realities, not to pump fear, but to give you a good insight of where you are. Another thing that I'm doing with my clients, right? Depending on age, what are you doing for insurance? I've had two clients, Michelle, in a time span of 15 days have to be rushed to the hospital. don't have
Mhm.
no insurance. They don't have no will set up because their will, everything is still in English.
Mhm.
Everything is in English. And I'm just like, you know, that even if you open a bank account in Mexico and the person that you put on there as your recipients, they don't come notified, they don't have your password and card, they're still not going to be able to get anything out of this bank account for you.
Right. True.
So these are the questions that you need to ask. I don't care about the party life. You can figure that out on your own. Let's
Mhm.
keep it business. What are you doing financially? How are you going to sustain yourself? What are you doing with your paperwork if something was to happen to you? I just had a
Right.
client who was 35, her husband was 39, dropped dead.
Mm.
He just dropped dead.
Mm.
And now she's back, she's headed back to the United States, and she had to cremate her husband, and it was
Mhm.
a tussle because they didn't have anything set up. I'm like, you moved abroad and you didn't think to notarize your will. You didn't think to change it into Spanish.
Translate it
you
exactly.
didn't you
But
think you
I
didn't
mean,
think to do any of this.
again, I think that those are the things that kind of, one, they do kind of get pushed behind. I mean, people aren't always focused on the emergency situation. And speaking of, this is a good, next week I will have someone who will be talking about estate planning and will planning and things like that next week, April 3rd. On my live, I actually used her services, but she's in the US, but you need someone on the Mexico side to translate those documents because you live here, your assets, where are those things going, and all these other things, because they are not going to look at an English written plan, estate plan, and execute anything, right? So you just have to know, like, potentially, the government could come in and take something away that you worked hard for, whatever the case might be. So I think it is important to have those conversations. Yeah.
And those are the questions that I think people need to start to put on the forefront. Where the property is, what is what is the value looking like? If I'm going to rent, because I always tell people, you want to come in, you want to jump in, you want to buy, but you don't really understand what side of town you're going to like. And buying is so permanent for a long time. I am one of those people who are like, just jump in and rent for a year, figure
Yep.
out the city, and then
Exactly.
buy. You know,
Exactly.
put your house on the market for rent in the States. It's a passive income, and feel it out. Buy the car this year and then buy the house next year. Because
Right.
this is what I tell my clients. You bought the house, you bought the car and furniture, and then you're going to tell me that you don't have money in 6 months because you've really capped out. You're doing things that you wouldn't have done in the United States
Or how you would have done them.
or
And
how
that's
you wouldn't have
not,
done it.
yeah, that's not everyone. It's just one of those situations that I think it's important for people to think through. And like you said, the steps, yeah, you know,
Yeah, and you can have like like I'm not saying that you don't have the finances. What I'm saying is the smartest way to use your finances
okay.
because we know that the dollar goes up and down. And I don't know about you, but it took me at least 4 months to even decide on what couch I wanted. So I would go and the price would seem to be different every time, you know, or buying a car, you know, coming in as a foreigner, buying a car, you got to make sure your license is together, then the insurance. And if you bring a car, you got to do the tip and you know, there's a whole
Right.
process, you know,
Right. People
and
ask that all the time. They're like, should I bring a car? I'm like, it's probably better to buy it here,
yes,
and just, think about the things. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to solve every problem from the straight off. I think it's get your residency, figure out where you want to live, figure out if the area that you're in, the city you're in, is that for you, whatever it is. Yeah. You know?
exactly. And I think that if you're renting for a year someplace, I strongly suggest that people travel that year.
Yeah, agreed.
Travel, travel. If it's too hot in Merida, go further up. Don't let the fear of, oh, Mexico is dangerous stop you from traveling the country because
Exactly.
you never know what jewel is waiting for you on the outside that nobody else has found. So I strongly suggest that. And to answer your question, questions about renting, or just coming over and you're renting, you don't want to buy. You have to decide, what do you want in your local area? For a lot of times people are like, "Oh, I need a market." Well, newsflash, Merida isn't one of those places that have a market. They have little shops on the corner store markets,
Right.
but nothing big like Mexico City, or nothing fresh like Veracruz. So that can't be at. Or I want to be in walking distance. Where are you walking in 56 Celsius? Where are you walking? Where are you going with this type of heat? You know what I'm saying? So we have to have these real life conversations, like, and then have an understanding, how, like, what is the goal to what you need in the neighborhood. They're like, "Oh, I need stuff for children to be able to play outside." And I'm just like, I don't think that you really understand how the weather affects
It's
the
so hella
activities.
hot. I don't
Yeah.
get it. I'm like, you got to do your homework. Even for me, I made the mistake of not doing the weather homework coming from Florida, right? I like it hot, not hella hot. I don't like Merida kind of hot, but I like, year round heat, humidity. If it goes up to 95, I'm okay with that. We're down to 65 in the evening. I'm okay with that, or 70 at night. I'm okay with that. And when I came here in December 2017, I was like, ooh, we're in the mountains, it's cold, right? Because I'd been to all the beach places, like not just Cancun, but mostly in Oaxaca. Oaxaca's beautiful, right? So it's very rural and more untouched. It's just a beautiful place, right? Beautiful beaches and things. And so when I got here, I was just like, oh, it's kind of chilly. Then it heats up during the day. But once I got back, I started doing more research. I said, okay, I actually do like it. Came back in February, and I said, I like it. I can deal with this. I'm getting to a point where now I'm just like, you know what? December, January, February, or mid-November to mid-February, I don't want to be here because I don't want to be hot. I don't want to be cold anymore. I want to be where it's warmer. So yeah, maybe I'll be a snowbird in Mexico and go to somewhere where
You
it's
should come to
warmer.
Merida. You come
Maybe,
to Merida then. And
maybe,
I get that. Or
yeah.
Veracruz is like that. Remember I told you last time we spoke, I was sitting on my fireplace because Veracruz is cold.
Yeah, I remember you telling me it snows in
It
some parts.
snows
It's,
in Pico de Orizaba has snow.
oh,
It's like Toluca. It's cold.
interesting. Yeah, and also when I went to Chihuahua, it was cold. I woke
Mm.
up, there was frost and almost snow. I've seen pictures with snow. I was hoping it would snow because I went up there for Christmas and took the train, and I was just like,
Oh,
please, snow, I want to see snow. But it was close. It was close enough. I enjoyed it, put my winter gear on, but that's not something I want to experience on a regular basis. So,
that's
yeah.
the part of the academic or the education that I say that people need. Mm, Educate, when I say educate yourself, know that Mexico is so big that we have so much going on. It
Yeah.
is definitely, like, I would talk to people and they're like, "Oh, it's always hot there." I'm like, where are you always hot? Because it's not always hot
Yeah.
here. I mean, we were at 10 degrees Celsius this winter in Merida, and
Oof.
people couldn't, like, we were like, what is this weather about? Global warming's a thing. But
Yeah.
we don't know we don't know what we don't know, is what Roxana would tell me. And I'm just like, well, I don't know. I'm a nerd. So I'm just like, why are we not asking the questions? Why are we not investigating more? Why are we not um, worried about things that we use in everyday life in the United States? Like for me, I would never move to Colorado. That's just not on my radar. So, and why it's not on my radar? Because I know it snows. And if it snows
Right.
in Colorado, it's got to snow somewhere else in the world, and it's got to snow somewhere else in Mexico. It's not on I mean, to
It's
me,
not advertised. Well,
it's
again, it's the educating, and I think like, I'm noticing people are making some comments, and I know, like, for example, Tracy just said that she was glad that they traveled around in Mexico. I know several people that have done that. I do think that people can, you know, what I usually say is know thyself. I say that all the time. Know yourself, know what you can adjust to, know that if you choose a place and you're kind of like, not sure if this was quite right for me, or I don't know if I really want to be here more than 1 or 2 or 3 years. So don't lock yourself in, right? Unless if you know, then you buy the property if you got it like that to just say, well, I can easily sell it or whatever. That's okay, right? But I think the idea is really to really do the work, especially if you know how you are. Don't fantasize about this transition because it can break some people down, not everyone. And I also think too, if you go to a place and it's not for you, didn't work out, try some other part of Mexico. Do some more homework, do some research. And I do think a lot of people do that. And I think the ones that don't are the ones that pack up and go back. Because I do think that there's a lot of blessings that we receive in being in this space when you're open to all of the things that can come at you. I really do. I do really believe that. So before we go, I want to say, I want you to tell us a little bit about your language centers. We've talked about this before, and then also tell us about your new ventures here, and also give us a little bit before you do that of the differences in living in Orizaba versus. I know there are less, immigrants, but kind of like what was the lifestyle like in Orizaba? I know it was less expensive because we talked about that before, but just a little bit of the differences, and do you prefer one thing over the other, or does it matter to you?
Sure. Um, First, Welsh Career Center or Welsh English Center is how you can find us online and Facebook, Instagram. We teach English, Spanish, French, German, Mandarin, Portuguese.
Nice.
Okay. Each class or each language has a native teacher who is in charge. And then we use Mexican teachers because it's important for you to hear the language spoken by native and then also hear it spoken by somebody who's non-native. Okay, so that you have expectations and reality. A lot of people are like, I want to speak Spanish fluently. I want to sound like Maria. Good luck, because her voice box is her voice box is defined. So, and we teach Spanish in an immersion setting, meaning that you can either go to Veracruz, you can go online, or you can be here in Yucatan. And we take you out and about to learn the language, and you have grammar. We are accredited, so this means that the time that you take, there is a certification process. So if you want to enroll your children, or if you want to take it and be certified so that they can teach, or you can teach it in another country, you can. We supply that. Um, and my husband is really in charge of the school now because I have moved on into Cool as a Cucumber psychology, where I work with trauma, PTSD, destination coaching, life coaching. I'm working a lot with the expat immigrant community and helping to make better decisions when moving abroad. Not just focused on Mexico, but just in general, like being okay with who you are wherever you're going to be. Um, right now I'm really excited because I'm trying to working towards getting this client base that really uses expats like HP, where they move people from the United States to Mexico, because expat services is where the company hires me to make sure that the person who's moving and their family is mentally prepared for the move,
I
because the
love it.
company is investing in you. So they want to make sure that you're able to adapt culturally. This is why I got my degree in occupational and developmental. So are you able to function in the new culture? Are you going to be the type of person who is always looking back saying, it's not done like that in my country? Or you're going to be like, oh, this is cool. Like I can do this. So companies actually pay me to tell them if you're adaptable to move abroad. And
Interesting.
that for me is really cool because I think people don't realize that there is a whole mental process to prepare for when you are
Absolutely.
moving abroad.
Absolutely.
Um, not that they are saying that, and it's just how flexible are you to change? If you've ever had a psychoanalysis exam, they have the same 100 questions, but it's just spelled out different because they
Mm-hmm.
want to see how truthful you are with yourself. And something that I really liked that you said was don't fantasize you, don't romanticize you, just be you.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes into expat services. This is where
Mm-hmm.
we learn um, how we are going to adapt to our new environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my passion at the moment. I
I
have a
love
busy
that.
brain. I have a very busy brain. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm bringing it in for those who don't need extensive therapies, then I come in with coaching and I align them to what it is to live here in Merida or in Veracruz or wherever in Mexico that you want.
Mm-hmm.
What are the rules of engagement? A lot of times, I think people just don't really understand what are the rules of engagement. What is a
Mm-hmm.
normal scenario here versus something that is abnormal where your spidey senses are going off. You're like, yeah, I don't know if this is right. This
Mm-hmm.
is, what you need a coach for. Also, um, to answer your question about Veracruz versus Merida, I love Veracruz.
Mm-hmm.
I don't at the present time wish to go back because of my son. I need my son to have a more broader cultural experience.
Mm. Okay.
Um, the people in Veracruz are amazing, but we don't have a high flux of people. We don't have traffic. It's the
Right.
same.
It's not
It's the
really
same people.
multicultural. Right.
No,
Right.
I mean, if you want to see Jewish people or conversate with Jewish people, you got to go to Puebla. If
Mm.
you want to see somebody in just different,
Mm-hmm.
you got to go outside of Veracruz. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I like about Yucatan in general is we have Lebanese here, we have
Mm.
Chinese, we
Mm-hmm.
have Canadian, Arabic. There's everybody's here. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we go out, we are not the center of attention,
Right.
and that's a big thing because something that I tell my clients about. You make these moves, but you don't really think about how your children are going to adapt. You throw them into a school, and they're the goldfish in the pond. Everybody's
Yeah.
like literally staring at them for six to
All the
eight
time.
hours,
Right.
and then they come home, and you're like, "How was your day?" And they don't want to hurt your feelings and let you know that they've been under the microscope for 6 hours or 8 hours,
Mm-hmm.
But that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing. And my son, was born here in Mexico and he doesn't have to suffer so much as people staring at him all day because he looks like his daddy. But
I've seen them. So cute.
thing is, he looks just like his dad. So
Mm-hmm.
with this being said, when we would go out together as a family unit in Veracruz, cars would like stop. And I was like, what's
Interesting.
up with that? But here in Merida, no. And educationally, Merida is the number one spot for education in the southern region of Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a lot more opportunities
Mm-hmm.
for scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And he's already decided that he wants to be a astrophysics chemic
Mm.
engineer,
Nice.
something crazy. And I was like,
Go for
okay,
it.
yeah, I'm like, what? Go for it. And he's already taken these coding classes to do so, and he's 9. So
I
they
love it.
have these opportunities
True.
versus Veracruz didn't have them. They just don't
Mm-hmm.
have them. They have the economics, but they don't have the infrastructure for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Merida does. A lot of times I see people asking about homeschooling in Merida, and for me, I just feel like that is the absolute worst thing you can do because Merida has so many opportunities for your children to get recognized internationally that
Mm-hmm.
if you keep them at home, they're not going to get recognized. They're not going to have these opportunities to be exposed to them, for them to be exposed to, because
Mm-hmm.
like with the coding thing, it's from Argentina. So
Mm.
that's one thing. So I like Merida in that way. I will say that it has been a bit of an adaptive situation for me when it comes to dealing with people because um, I don't know how to say this without it sounding ridiculous, but I am who I am. Um, Getting back into doing business with North Americans has been a struggle because the expectations are all over the place. And in Veracruz, it's kind of like I know exactly what the people want, you know. It is it has been much easier to do business with Yucatecans, Mayans, uh, than it has been to do business with Americans, just to be honest. Um, and just watching how Yucatan folds and unfolds for different nuclei of people is wild, but it's an experience. And um, going through like we started this conversation, the food here is special. But I cook. I
I
cook,
cook
so
too. I
yeah.
cook more
Well,
now.
exactly. When once this is why I always tell people when the glitter goes away, when the glitter that fairy dust disappears, can you do it on your own? So I'm just like, well, thank God I cook. But
Yeah.
I've gained more weight here because I was just doing this Texas Roadhouse thing up, and I was like, wait a minute. It's been
I don't
15
think
years
I've seen that here. I'm sure there's one somewhere close, maybe
in
in
Querétaro.
Querétaro, but I haven't yet. I
In
haven't been
Querétaro.
there.
No,
That's
here,
so
I mean,
funny.
everything. They got Boston, was it Boston's,
The chicken place,
Chili's? No,
Chile,
it's
Boston.
Canadian.
I
Boston,
don't know Boston's.
like Veracruz doesn't have like Rappi and Uber Eats and all this stuff. So now it's like,
So you're a little spoiled.
oh, yeah,
Even though we
honestly.
might resist the system at times, yeah, there's always going to be a catch-22 in all these situations. And I think that the attractions exist, some of the things, and I think for you too, your experiences have been, you've lived a real authentic Mexican experience. And I think that coming out of that, like if you started in the Yucatan and then kind of went, maybe it would be a more of an adjustment, but it's kind of like, you lived a lot of years in an authentic Mexican neighborhood,
Pueblo.
pueblo. Yeah,
Pueblo.
and you've established business there. You're around mostly locals. You've adjusted to what it takes to kind of maneuver through life in that setting, right?
Yeah,
And now you're somewhere else, and it's kind of like it could be kind of culture shock for you, right? In a whole
it
different
is.
way. Even though you're from the United States, but you've been in Mexico, like you said, for a long time. And I think finding like that speed and fitting in and where do you fit in, I could see where that could be challenging. And even just, the expectations of, like you said, the North Americans, because we come with our own things, right? We come with our own luggage, our own baggage, our own emotional, whatever expectations mostly. This is why I always kind of say in my comments and things, even being on here, is I ask people to walk into Mexico with grace, tread
Yes.
lighter, let go of how you think it should be and just kind of, okay, let me get a greater understanding of how things are and how they work. Because this way you're not going to maybe, tire out the people that are working with you who might be locals and totally judging us a little bit. Ongoing, I say us because I'm also, foreigner, but you're also going to not be so frustrated by things. You're going to probably give it a little bit more grace, right? And
Yeah.
say, okay, you know what? All right, I don't expect that everything's going to be perfect, and this is what I'm used to, and whatever. Sometimes it's like, all right, you know what? Mexicans typically aren't that much in a hurry to do things. They're not
I told you
rushing
to hurry
around.
up and wait.
They're not snapping fingers like, let's do
Yes.
this. Yes, the different parts of the country, you're going to get better, faster service. I love going to Mexico City,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
because it's a city. things work there, right? Uber works, like you said, Didi, whatever, like things show up, they come, you know exactly what it is. And like I've, been to some amazing restaurants and it's just a different thing. But I understand that it's a much faster pace. There's a lot more money that's poured into that part of the country. So, it's going to resemble a little bit more maybe what I'm used to. And I'm okay
Mm-hmm.
with that. But I also can appreciate the slow charms of living in this part of Mexico as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are times when I'm also like, ooh, well, this is so frustrating. But I also can say, well, for the most part, the pluses are greater, the pros are greater than the cons.
I
Yeah,
think if I had to describe Merida, I would say that Merida is city living with country government official, if that makes sense.
here too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
does.
how I was like, you have
It's
to
a good
understand
analogy.
that everything is go, go, go until it comes to the political aspect of what you're doing. And then it just slows up and comes to this sluggish halt.
Screeching halt. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm just like, well, this is where you see the infrastructure of Mexico. This
true.
is where you get to see the infrastructure. And I think if you're okay with understanding infrastructurally, Mexico is kind of one note.
Yeah.
Yeah. One note infrastructure, but it just shows up differently in each state. It shows up
True.
differently in each state. But I don't see Merida being my forever. It's just where I decide to open my southern region for the school. My ultimate goal is to get to Europe because I want my son to go to Europe for high
Love
school.
it. Love it.
So, but as I prepare to buy property, it's very important, I think, to have property in the southern region of the country because it is always so popular.
True. This
And
is
if
true.
I tell people all the time, if you're investing and you're not investing in Mexico's hottest tourist areas that have been, long going. I'm not talking about the new Tulum. I'm talking about, like I said, Merida has been the hot spot for the snowbirds of Canada since the 60s. So if you're not investing where people have been putting in the work to show that it's a tourist spot, then are you good at investing? So we gotta think about that when we talk about doing business here. For example, I still have my house and school and property in Veracruz and don't want to let it go because Veracruz, when we talked before, it was very inexpensive. Right now, Orizaba is hitting the rent market at 17 to 20,000 a month.
Interesting. Why is
It
that?
the Chinese have came in
But why?
because it's the Gulf of Mexico produces petroleum.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Pemex is hiring more Chinese on the rig, fishing, and the refinery is right at that Ciudad de Carmen, which is not far. So Veracruz and Orizaba is the number one pueblo in the republic. Is number one pueblo mágico in the republic. So it's being pushed around Europe like the place to go and visit. And
Interesting.
so what is boring to me, it seems to light people up about Orizaba.
Like I said, build it, they'll come.
So yeah, exactly. Build it, they'll come. So they
Yeah,
have really built it up.
there's so many places in Mexico that are beautiful and amazing, and they're little towns and whatever. I mean, every big town started as a small town, you
Exactly.
know. I mean, look at San Miguel. When I came here, being four in '05, being 4 or 5 blocks away from the parroquia seemed like a ways away, right? And now, I mean, come on, we're like on the outer, and we're just kind of like, oh, it's still not that bad. So, and it's just growing and it's growing, and they're building and they're building. And when I see other cities in Mexico, like I use this often as an example when I went to Zacatecas.
Mm,
I loved it there.
yeah.
I was like, wow, it was so amazing and beautiful. And maybe it was because I didn't expect anything. But it was a beautiful city. It was more like I don't know, just look, it reminded me of a European city, a straight European city. I think I saw two immigrants, maybe five, the whole time I was there. And it was quite developed, and it was just interesting to be there and see, and I remember thinking like, oh, probably be a nice idea to buy property here because it's still less expensive. And it's pretty developed. They had a cable car going over the city. It's very touristy, but it's national touristy, right? It's not international
And
touristy. So,
that's Orizaba right now. It's national, the national hotspot, and I'm still gonna enjoy it. If you like Zacatecas, you should try ¿cómo es this? Valladolid.
I wonder
It's
if it's on my
it's in
list.
between. I know I'm not saying that right. I'm gonna tell you. I'll text it to you. But it's in between Puebla and Mexico City. It's Italian. It
That's
is.
vaguely familiar.
It is.
I'm looking at my bucket list.
It's it's a really nice place. It's cold in the winter and it's chill in the summertime, but it's really nice. It's not Valladolid. Valladolid is here in Yucatan, which is another nice pueblo. I'll send it to you, but it's a really nice place to check out
Okay.
if you
Okay.
like Zacatecas.
I
And
love
I
Zacatecas.
you like that Oaxacan homey feel, like not too busy but busy enough. Bohemian chic is what I call Oaxaca.
Oaxaca
It's
is too jungle for me. No,
yeah.
it's a no.
Uh, well, yeah, there you go. If you're not digging Oaxaca, you won't dig Yucatan because we're in the heart of the jungle.
Okay, I can visit. I'm not a person who freaks out when I see a spider. It's me or them. I'm gonna kill you if I'm not putting you outside because sometimes you got to go. But I've been in that setting. However, I don't know about living in the mix of it. Now I know Oaxaca City is different, right? It's a city,
Mm-hmm.
but like I said, the places along the beach, which are really beautiful, they're natural. It's just too rural for me, and the whole it feels like it's a very laid back lifestyle, but it's a harder lifestyle. Like you got to really plan your groceries, and then you
The
got to
lack of
drive.
internet.
Yeah, lack of internet. You got to drive, 45 minutes, 50 minutes just to get to this little rinky-dink town like Pachutla and, shop and buy your things and whatever. And it's only on these days. I don't want to, no, I don't want to do that.
I want to say something before we go.
Sure.
Um, we're an indigenous country, and
True.
I think that if people who are coming in pay attention to what the indigenous say about the land, you will understand what to expect. Where am I going with this? In your territory, it's more Azteca Machica. And so they talk about deer, they talk about pumas, they talk about minerals. Where you are, you have the lithium pools, you have a lot of minerals.
Quartz.
Quartz, yeah. The indigenous display this in their headdress, in their headguards. Where I am, the indigenous Maya, they have snakes, jaguars, crocodiles on all of their things. And I always tell people, if you think that it was just for art, you are crazy. They are telling us exactly what to expect in this land. And when I tell you that Yucatan has a snake problem, it's a snake problem. And Cancun is basket of snakes in Maya. So I think that once again, when we talk and we look at these images that the indigenous have left us, or they still paint or carve out, we can really see what to expect,
True.
the richness of the land. And that's one of the great things that they have given us to really understand Mexico. It is, if you just type in the state, the shield that pops up will let you know exactly what to
What to
expect.
expect? That's a
What
good
to expect.
analogy.
So I think that's something to think about as you travel. Oaxaca's jungle or marshland is beautiful. It's turtles, and you get to see whales and the
Hmm.
bioluminescence. I really like Masunte. I really like it. So you get to
Yes.
see these things, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You don't get that in Yucatan per se. We have beautiful
Hmm.
beaches. I think that Yucatan has some of the most beautiful beaches in the country
Uh-huh.
because they are emerald green. You're just at the tip of the Caribbean, so you
Hmm.
don't get the bluish green until you get further or closer to Quintana Roo. But the beaches here are beautiful.
Right.
But just last week we had a whole leopard swimming in the ocean, just swimming.
He was
And,
having a good time.
and everybody
He's
was
like,
freaking out, and I was just like, well,
he's like, mind your business.
yeah,
You know
not
what
a
I mean?
leopard, a jaguar. It was a jaguar, and I,
Jaguar.
I was just like, huh. And I told my husband, I was like, everybody's freaking out as if the Mayans didn't tell us exactly
To expect. I mean,
what to expect.
is it pumas or jaguars in Oaxaca? I mean, they have signs as you drive down the
Yeah,
regular highway. So
exactly.
yeah, you're right about that. I think for me, it's the places that I enjoy visiting and vacationing. I realize that, it's a jungle-like setting and it's beautiful. Like, where my ex and I built our house, it's beautiful, right? The ocean, we're looking at the Pacific, is just gorgeous. However, it's in a jungle-like setting and a dirt road, and I know that I don't want to work that hard at living in this kind of setting. However, the point being is that Mexico has so many options and so many choices, and if you are willing to explore the country, right? There's something for everyone, and I say that all the time. It doesn't
Absolutely.
have to just be the tourist thing. I love San Miguel. Like I said, for me, my biggest attraction to living here and what pulled me in was the community that I felt and didn't expect, didn't know. I saw some of it online. I experienced people being extra friendly when I visited, like, hey, where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't used to that because in the US, our culture is not that warm and fuzzy. And I do think that people who move here from other places adapt what the Mexican culture kind of gives in terms of the warmth and the help. And, it's not always just transactional, right? Or fair to talk to someone or whatever. And I feel that this part of Mexico really eludes a lot of that kind of community vibe. And I think that that's what the attraction kind of, trickles out and becomes more and more like appealing to more and more people.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, yes, it does raise the cost and things like this. But I do want to say that there are a lot of beautiful places in Mexico. My list of places to explore goes on and on and on and on and on. I'm interested in getting to those places. I love Morelia. I mean,
Mm,
hands down, this is a gorgeous city as well. I've been to San Luis Potosí, parts of, there's just so many places. So I just say, as you said, do your homework, check things out. It's
travel.
long, yeah, travel. It's a long interview. I love that you are in another part of Mexico. You're thriving with your business. You're doing, this coaching and really helping people that are trying to move here, whether it's through a corporate setting or individual. Knowing yourself, right, so that the move is easier. But yeah, it's just great to
Yeah,
talk to you again.
not a
I
problem.
was
We're gonna
gonna
close it out.
wrap it up. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
but
Thank you for having me. And
thank
we can talk
you.
for days. But yes, thank you for
Yes,
having
because
me.
we've done that.
Yes, if anybody's interested in moving central or south, please reach out. We have great
Yes,
information for you. You can
I
always
want to.
find me at Welsh or at Cool as a Cucumber.
And I'm going to put it in the chat. What's your
On Instagram, it's Cool as a Cucumber.
K with a K, right?
Yes.
But is it with underscores?
Yes. Cool as a Q. It's cool underscore as underscore a
Underscore, right? Cucumber
and
with a
then
K.
cucumber. You can reach out there.
Okay.
or Welsh English Career
Gee.
Center.
Okay, one second. And Welsh English Career Center. And you have three locations, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Perfect. And I'll
either.
put your name right here. Rakia, is it to find you, Rakia Hernandez?
Uh-huh. Or Rakia. I seem to pop up now, just whatever. Just
Okay.
Rakia Welsh, Rakia Hernandez is all over the board. But yes, either or.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
with
I
Welsh
found
you
it
will
as,
get, huh? Did
no,
you
I was
find
going to
me?
say I had Rohan as well, so I wasn't sure.
Yep, Rohan too, because it's my maiden name. Yeah. I haven't used
Okay.
it in a forever. But yeah, it's the maiden name,
Okay.
but exactly. There you
Okay.
go.
Well, thank you all for joining us. I know there was some chatting going on in the chat. I was kind of keeping an eye on it, but I know you all were talking to each other. But yes, it was a pleasure to speak to you again and just kind of get the insight on things that we can do better in terms of making that move abroad, and giving yourself in the move itself, the transition, the work that has to go into it, giving it grace, right? Giving it room to breathe, giving it room to thrive, understanding that it is really an incredible opportunity. Think about all the people who immigrated from other countries to the U.S., from Jamaica, from my side of the family to Canada. All of these things, my parents moving and down from, first from Jamaica to Canada to the United States, it's the same thing, right? But this is kind of us choosing where we want to be, not, oh, I was born into that situation, I just stayed there, right? We know that there are a lot of political things happening in the world, not just in the United States, in the world, right? And I think that when we explore other places that make us feel good, that feel like home, it just gives life a whole different meaning. And that's for me the blessing of being in Mexico. I always say, thank you, Mexico, for receiving me as not just my skin color, but me as a person who chose this country as home. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I've met so many beautiful people, and I just want to like kind of continue to spread, the best ways to get here and get the help. Get the help. Hire a Rakia, hire myself. We're here at Casa Elm in Central Mexico, and there are lots of people online now, people of color, to give that perspective if that's what you need and that's what you're looking for and that's why you're here. I have clients from all races that are reaching out to me, and I'm happy to help all of you make that move smooth, right? Right? That's what we're here for. So if you haven't hit the like, please do so. Don't forget, please subscribe. I come here every Wednesday. I try to be here every Wednesday to say something that helps you. Next week, we'll be on with Helen talking about estate planning from abroad and just, keep continuing educating us.
Super
Thank you
important.
all.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Do you want to tell us
Thank you.
anything else before we go?
No, I think that
Yeah.
that you said it all. I think Mexico is very welcoming if you allow it to be.
Absolutely.
If you allow it to, your expectations should be just
Absolutely.
happy and free. Yes. So it was always a
Absolutely.
pleasure. Ciao. Hasta
Okay.
luego. Que tenga buena
Hasta
noche.
luego. Igual,
Bye bye.
bye. Bye. Hold on one sec. There's a little bit of a delay. One sec. Okay. There's always a delay, girl, like 20 to